Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Megan Ames, and I am the Program Manager for the Career Training Program. And I am joined by my colleague Abigail, who is our Communications Manager. So we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. We'll first review the agenda. Just one housekeeping item. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the question box, and then we will address all the questions at the end. And if any questions come up that seem like they need to be answered right away, we will also answer them. All right, so this is our agenda for today. First, we will introduce Inter-Exchange. I know a number of you attending are already familiar with us because you have had participants from some of our other programs or our program, but we'll give a brief overview. We'll talk about the J1 intern and trainee visas, what they are, and why it's a good idea to become a host organization for J1 interns and trainees. We will also review eligibility to make sure that your organization is eligible to host intern and trainees, and talk a little bit about how to potentially find an intern and trainee or trainee for your organization if you don't have one in mind already. And then we'll go through the application process. So just briefly, Inter-Exchange, we are a nonprofit devoted to international exchange. We sponsor a number of different programs. We're a J1 visa sponsor designated by the Department of State for a number of J1 programs. Some that you may be familiar with are the Au Pair program, Camp USA, the Work and Travel program, Career Training, which is for interns and trainees. They both fall under that department. And then we also have programs for US participants who wish to go overseas. A J1 visa sponsor is an organization that is designated by the US Department of State to make sure that anyone that is participating in these programs is eligible. So that includes vetting the participant as well as a host organization to make sure that they are both qualified to be part of the program. We will issue the documentation that is needed when the participant goes to the embassy to apply for the visa itself. This includes the DS 2019, and the DS7002, which is also known as the training plan, which we'll discuss a little bit more later in the presentation. And so we're responsible for monitoring the participants and the hosts while they're on the program as well. So it's important to note that the host organizations are not the visa sponsor. Inter-Exchange is a visa sponsor, but a host organization would be the host. So I will go through the J1 intern and J1 trainee visas and discuss a little bit about the differences between them. There are 15 different types of J1 visas, so it can get a bit convoluted. So definitely feel free to ask questions about this if you have any. The J1 intern and J1 trainee visas are the two that our program, Career Training USA, works on. The intern visa is for a participant who is a student or recent graduate, and the internship that they do needs to be directly related to what they're studying in their academic program or what they have just studied in their recent academic program. This program can be up to 12 months, but it can be anywhere between 3 weeks and 12 months. So it really can work within the requirements for that participant. It can be unpaid if it is for less than 6 months, but any internship or training program that is less than 6 months, any internship that is less than 6 months does need to meet the Department of Labor criteria for unpaid internships if it is unpaid. Both of these can start at any time of year, and the training plan is required for both of them. The trainee program is for somebody who has already graduated from an academic degree program and has at least 1 year professional experience. And the professional experience that they have does need to be directly related to what they will be doing for the training program. So even if their bachelor's degree is a different subject, that's fine as long as the year of professional experience that they have is directly related to the training. These can be for up to 18 months, except for the field of hospitality, which can be up to 12 months. And trainee programs do need to be paid. And like the intern program, they can start at any time of year and require a training plan. So those are the differences between the two programs and the eligibility requirements for participants. A couple things to clarify is that the intern and trainee visa is a temporary visa, and it's for individuals who are coming for work or study-based exchange programs in the U.S. And they are required for someone coming to the U.S. for an internship or training program. Participants can't come to the U.S. and do an internship on an ESTA visa, for example. And it is not a work visa for ordinary employment purposes. So this is for the J1 intern and trainee visa specifically. It's not for work. It is an internship or a training program and not meant to fulfill a labor need. And these are also not pathways to become a resident in the US or to become a citizen or to switch to another type of visa. So the idea is that they will come, they will do their program, and then they will return to their home country or another country outside of the US to share what they've learned with their peers. So why would you want to become a host organization? We'll go through some reasons why. This information is from a recent study from the Alliance for International Exchange about the impact of these programs. So these are some of the reasons that the companies have cited as why they decide to host interns. And some of you on this call who have hosted interns and trainees may have been part of this study, so thank you. They say that interns and trainees add a unique cultural perspective to the workplace, and it also enhances work ethic and has a good impact on the organization. It does also give the opportunity for someone who is a member of that organization, maybe in an overseas location, to get international leadership skills that may help them in the future. It also supports leaders by helping them, the interns and trainees, fulfill program requirements. So this may be somebody that will later be an industry leader, and you are helping them to fulfill the requirements for their university so that they can go on to be successful in the field. They also say that participants often promote the host organization upon returning home, so it gives them more international reach, and it develops top talent for future international roles. So somebody who may be at your company in a different location, in a different country, is coming over to learn from you, and then later in their future, they're going to be top talent in a role in the organization. So that's some reasons that companies say that they host. Other benefits of hosting that they cited is that it gives mentorship opportunities for the interns and staff. So staff have the opportunity to mentor, and then the interns have the opportunities to learn from them. It boosts creativity. It helps support higher education, because a lot of these interns and trainees are required to do training and internships in order to finish their academic degrees. So this does support them in being able to do that. A lot of industries or a lot of degree programs do require them to do international internships specifically. So this really helps with that. It also helps develop international talent for your organization. So you'll have talent worldwide who has been able to learn from you, and you've been able to learn from them. It will expand your global presence and enhance brand recognition in new markets. It also has an economic impact. So the intern and trainee program contributed $264.2 million to the US economy in 2023. So this is a benefit of hosting for our country. I'll share a few quotes from our hosts as well. Some of you may have contributed these. Thank you. We do have them anonymous to protect your privacy. But one host from a US government office mentioned how they had an intern who brought new perspectives, even though that intern came from another English-speaking country. It was interesting to see how there were vast differences between the two different English-speaking countries that they were able to learn about from their intern. This biotechnology host company talks about how it helped them foster creativity and made it a more dynamic and inclusive work environment. So those are two great quotes. And then this restaurant that had a culinary arts chef program talks about how their international trainees bring their specific techniques from their home cuisine, from their home culture, and from the culinary schools where they're doing their training, and help the restaurants grow and take on those new techniques, as well as giving them the opportunity to teach them, and they're able to bring it back overseas when they end up opening their new restaurants in the future. And this industrial engineering company talks about how they learn new ways in problem solving from their international interns and learning the different ways that they work, learning the ways that they perceive life in the US. So this also is added value, and they say gave them a diverse set of voices in their problem solving. I'm now going to pass the baton to Abigail. She's going to talk a little bit about eligibility to host an intern or trainee in the US.
Yeah, thank you, Megan, and thank you to all of you who are joining. I hope you are now inspired to host an intern or trainee in your company. So yes, I'll go over a little bit of the eligibility requirements for the program. So here are just some general eligibility requirements. The J1 intern and trainee visas, as Megan already explained, do have regulations that are different from some of the other J1 visa categories. So it's good to just kind of know the difference and make sure that your company is eligible to host. The first thing I want to talk about is that your company, wherever the participant will be interning, it does need to be a professional space. So this is generally an office, or if you're a hospitality host, then maybe like a resort or a restaurant. Essentially, this means that they can't train at a home-based business, for example. So it does need to be in an office or the restaurant or etc. It's also really important that the training happens on site in the office or the restaurant, and that you have experienced staff there who are available to teach the participant. So as Megan mentioned, this isn't an employment program. So the intern, can't displace US workers. You can't use them for regular employment purposes. They really are here to learn and to receive a cultural exchange experience. So you do need to have supervisors and staff available there on site to continually train the participant. Generally the participant is shadowing their supervisor, kind of learning about their role and learning skills from them directly. So you need to make sure you have enough supervisors available to offer that guided learning experience. So Interexchange does have a requirement that you have at least 5 full-time on-site employees per J1 intern or trainee. So that is a 5-to-1 ratio, and that does help to ensure that there's enough staff available to offer that training to the participant, and they're not filling a labor need. They also need to be primarily in person. So since the pandemic, there is a little bit of leeway with some remote work for interns and trainees, but the majority of the program does need to be in person in the office. The State Department has said that at least a minimum of 3 days per week need to be in the office in person, and only a few of those days can be, 2 of those days per week could be remote, but they don't have to be remote as long as they're at least 3 days per week in the office. So we do have other requirements on our website as well, and we'll keep going through some more, but you can always also go to our website to kind of look at the full list of requirements for hosts. You may be wondering if your industry is eligible. These are the 6 general categories that Interexchange is designated to sponsor. I will say that there are a few other categories in the intern and trainee program that are available. I think, for example, like an agriculture field, but Interexchange just doesn't sponsor those other categories. So you may want to look, if that applies to you, you may want to look at other sponsors who may offer that. But Interexchange does offer these 6 general categories. Under each category, there are more specific fields that your participant could fall into. So for example, under management, maybe your participant is in marketing and they could come do a marketing internship, and it would just be under that general category. We do a lot of STEM fields as well, so architecture firms, a lot of engineering firms, bio, research, that sort of thing. So there really are a lot of options under these 6 categories, and you can view all the specific categories on our website as well. But generally, if your organization falls into one of these categories, then you are good to be sponsored by InterExchange for the program. So there is some training that is prohibited, both by the State Department and by InterExchange. So in general, this is, as Megan and I have both mentioned now, for training and not for work. So participants can't do any casual labor positions. Like for example, they can't scoop ice cream in an ice cream shop. They do just need to be professional training that they're receiving. Also, anything to do with care really is not allowed on this program either. So, participants can't be taking care of children or elder care, for example. That includes teaching. So participants can't be teachers in schools, or they can't be coaches. They also can't, work at a summer camp or anything like that. So nothing involving children or care. Also, anything medical related is not allowed either. So they can't do clinical work, they can't do social work or anything really caring or doing medical examinations or interacting with patients in any way. That includes animal care as well. So those are all prohibited by the visa. And then each visa sponsor will have their own requirements as well. So, on our website, we list everything that is prohibited by InterExchange, but other visa sponsors may have some of their own prohibitions as well. So you'll want to check out that if you're looking at different options, and make sure that you are eligible and not doing anything that is not allowed. In terms of that kind of related, we just want to make sure to highlight that eligibility of participants who have previous US experience. I know, a lot of participants may come over and do a work and travel program, or maybe they're an au pair or a camp participant. They may be able to come back to the US to do a J1 intern or trainee program. You need to check their eligibility a little bit closer to make sure that they are eligible for the intern and trainee program based on their prior experience. So for example, InterExchange, we don't approve participants to return to former work and travel employers. So if you are a work and travel host and you hosted a participant at a specific location of yours as a work and travel participant, they cannot return to that same location as a J1 intern or trainee. So we don't allow them to return to the exact same location. If you're a larger company and you have multiple locations, they may be eligible to go to a different location as an intern or trainee, but that's a little bit more case by case. So if you have questions about that, do be sure to reach out to us, and we can work with you to talk through that. Au pairs also may be eligible to come back on as an intern or trainee, but they're not able to go directly from being an au pair to then being an intern on a J1 program. They do need to depart the US after their au pair program, get any related required work experience or start an academic degree program before they're eligible to return to the US and do an internship or trainee program. And then similarly, you can't change status from another visa to this program. So, you do have everyone who's applying has to be outside of the United States coming to start a new program. And we can't work with anyone who's trying to change status from a different visa type. So we'll briefly go over this. Megan already mentioned some of the compensation requirements, but just a reminder, InterExchange does have some requirements for this program. Our requirements are that any trainees are paid at least the local minimum wage, and then interns who are here for longer than 6 months also need to be paid the local minimum wage for the duration of their program. You're welcome to pay them more than that, but that is the minimum amount, is that local minimum wage. If they're an intern coming for a shorter program, less than 6 months, it's a possibility for them to do an unpaid internship as long as that meets the Department of Labor criteria for unpaid internships. So the compensation requirements do really vary based on if they're an intern or trainee and then how long they're coming to the US for. We do encourage you to pay your participants. In 2024, 82% of our participants received financial compensation. So that is, a good majority that do receive compensation. And it really does help make the program available to more participants. There is a cost for the participants to come participate in this program. So having them receive compensation really does allow more participants to come over and receive the training. Great. So we've talked about why you should intern. We've talked about, making sure you're eligible. You may now be wondering, how you can go about finding participants for this program. So we have a few tips and ideas of ways that you can connect with international interns and trainees that we're going to go over. So this is slide 1 of 2 of some of our recommendations. The first one I think is a really big one is connecting with overseas universities. So a lot of overseas universities really do promote internships and practical training opportunities for their participants, and even a lot of international degree programs have internships as a requirement. So those participants are actively looking for internships since they need to do it for their degree program, and that's just a great way, an opportunity for you to find organizations or universities to partner with, and either maybe become a partner with their internship requirements, or even just advertising on their career services page. So a lot of those universities will have internal databases where they're posting advice for participants, but also have like internal internship and job postings. So if you're able to advertise yourself in their career service database, that's also a great way to connect with international participants. Similarly, there are likely professional organizations that you are involved with or about, so you'll want to leverage those and post internship openings on their website or on their own internal databases, so that way participants who are just starting out may join those, hoping to network and connect with companies and others, and they'll be able to see those internship opportunities. Industry-specific job boards are also a great thing to look for if you don't already use them. You likely do. I know, for example, I believe there's an architecture one. I know that there's also a culinary one that gets used often. So you definitely want to utilize those and post on those job boards, because those are things that interns are going to be looking at. Since their internship in the US does need to be directly related to their academic field, they're really going to use those industry-specific sites to try to find organizations that align with what they've been studying. We also encourage participants, when they come to ask about how do I find an internship in the US, we recommend that they find companies that they're inspired by, that they're really interested in, and follow those companies on social media, and even consider reaching out to the company directly to propose an internship opportunity. So we just encourage you as hosts to be open to those those requests. So maybe you're not actively looking for an intern, or you're not actively promoting an internship, but you receive a request from a international participant asking about the possibility of an internship. Just consider that as an option for you, and be open to that. We talked about all the benefits these interns bring, so just keep that in mind, and make sure to talk with your colleagues to see if that's something that you could do. A few of our other recommendations are really to utilize, international conferences and trade shows. So these are a great way to network with both, your industry colleagues, but also new professionals who are maybe just starting out and would be interested in coming to the US for an internship, or, interns or universities. So really just networking at those and talking about the internship program, and that this is an option. I feel like sometimes interns or prospective interns don't even know that this is an opportunity in the US. So now that you know and you're interested in doing it, make sure to leverage that, those conferences that you go to, and to try to network and spread the word that this is an option. We also have a lot of multinational organizations who have offices in both the US and abroad. And oftentimes those branches abroad will send, early career employees to the US to do training on the trainee program. So if you are a larger organization and you have multiple branches, connect with your colleagues over there and mention that opportunity and see if you can, have participants come from your international branches, come train with you for a little while in the US and then go back to their company abroad. And then that will, connect your two organizations, your two branches as well across the organization. So it's a great way to have that exchange. And then finally, as I mentioned, we encourage participants to follow companies they like on social media. So do post any internship openings you have on your social media so that those participants who are really interested in you can see those and apply. And then when you're posting the job or internship posting, make sure you indicate that international applicants are welcome to apply. I think when international participants are looking for internships in the US, a lot of times it only talks about US citizens or, they get overwhelmed or nervous about applying as an international participant. So if you mark that, you're interested in looking at other international interns, that will really give them, help alleviate their concerns and give them a reason to submit their application with you. Great. So now we're going to do a brief overview of what the internship application or the sponsorship application process is. So once you've found your intern, then you will have to apply to a sponsor like InterExchange for the sponsorship paperwork and the visa. So we'll go over what that looks like. So this is a general overview of each step along the sponsorship process. So the first step we just talked about is finding an intern and trainee. Once you have a candidate, then you all will need to start your application on the InterExchange site. So we do have an internal application. There are two sides to that application. There's both the host organization side and the participant side, and they connect. So that completes one whole application. So you'll want to, start that application with us. But before you get too far along in the process, we do have a host orientation that you'll need to attend. So we offer these orientations 1 or 2 times a week throughout the year. They're about 20 minutes, and they go a little bit more in depth than we're going to today on the application process, requirements, and basically kind of give you more information about the logistics of being a J1 host, because there are some tax and different requirements like that we do go over in that host orientation. So that is required for all main supervisors for the application. So we do recommend attending that early in the process so you get all of the required information. But then you'll need to complete the J1 visa sponsorship application on our website. Once that's all complete, and we'll go over a little bit more in the next slides about what that entails. But once you complete the application, you submit it to InterExchange for review. We take a look at it. If we determine that both you and the participant are eligible for the program, we will approve you and we'll send the participants the documents they need to then go interview at a US embassy abroad. And that interview, after that interview, that's when the visa embassy staff determine if that participant can receive a visa. And once they receive the visa from the embassy, then they're ready to come to the US to begin their program. So how long does the process take? InterExchange does have one of the fastest review times of any J1 visa sponsor. We usually, once you submit your application to us, we do take an initial look within a day or two and let you or the participant know if anything is missing. Maybe a participant forgot a document that's required. So we'll just let the participant know that they need to submit that to us. Once we have all of the required documents, we do a full review within 10 days. So this is when we read the training plan that you've written to make sure it makes sense for the participant and the program, and kind of help make sure everything looks good with the application. So that full review, and when we determine if both you and the participant are eligible, is done within 10 days. And then after that, the participant does need to go to the embassy for their visa process. So overall, we do tell participants that the process takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So we advise participants and hosts to make sure they apply early enough to allow time for the whole process before their anticipated internship start date with you. So do keep that in mind as you're looking for interns, is that you want to make sure to give enough leeway of when you want your participant to be here for the internship. So if you're only offering a summer internship, you want to start advertising for that pretty early to allow time for the 6 to 8 week internship visa process before they can come to the US to do the internship. So just a few more details about how you can apply for the program and what the application on our website entails. So you should create an account on our website. This can be started by either you or the participant. So essentially you would either create your account and then invite the participant to create their account, or the participant can do it the other way around. They can start their application on our website and then invite you to their application. But basically that will connect your two applications into one full application that we review. You can also on our website invite any colleagues who will be involved in the training or in the company record. So oftentimes maybe you'll have an HR professional who's also on our record so that they can review company basics and documents. But you as a supervisor, will be writing and signing the training plan, for example. But any supervisors who will be involved or any HR colleagues who will be involved can be have an account on our website to access your company record. You'll need to provide some basic information about your company, address, number of employees, that sort of thing. You'll have information about the program. So this is when you'll give us your proposed program start date, how long the program will be, and when that program will start. You'll need to provide information on the compensation you're offering the participant. So, how much they'll be paid, if they will be paid, if you're offering any non-compensation offerings like a housing, for example. So sometimes if you're unable to pay the participant, but you're able to offer them housing, that's often a good way of kind of balancing the expenses for the participant. So that's something you'll outline in the application, as well as kind of what other things you may or may not be providing to the participant during the program. We have an agreement that you'll sign, which is basically an agreement with InterExchange, kind of explaining that you understand the program requirements. So that's a pretty quick sign as well as part of the application. You'll need to upload some documents, and we'll talk about those in the next slide. You'll need to create and sign a training plan, which we will also talk about briefly. And then once you've completed everything, you'll need to send the training plan over to the participant, who will also review it. And then once that's all signed, then you'll be ready to submit the application after your participant has also completed their portion of the application as well. So what kind of documents are required for your host application? So the big one is the workers' compensation certificate. So we will need to verify that you have valid workers' compensation or proof of exemption that you don't need to cover the participant with workers' compensation. So this is generally, you can get this from your insurance company. We just need the certificate outlining who is covered, the location, and the workers' compensation policy number and expiration date. So you will need to upload that to your host record as part of the application process. We'll also need either your DUNS number or a copy of your business registration. Either one, it doesn't have to be both, but we do need one or the other within the company basics section of your application. A federal identification number, which will also be requested in the company basics. A training plan for the participant, which we will talk about in the next slide. And then, as I mentioned before, everyone, the main program supervisor does need to attend a host orientation as well, outlining some of the program requirements and some of the logistics of being a host. So here is the training plan that we've been talking about. This training plan is a government document. So the questions within the training plan are set by the State Department. All J1 interns and trainees, regardless of the sponsor that they use, are required to write a training plan. This training plan does get input into the government database. So there is a student and exchange visitor database managed by the State Department, where they keep track of all participants in the US on an exchange program. So as part of the J1 intern and trainee programs, those training plans are uploaded into the government database. You will complete the training plan on our website. So we do have all of the government form questions in our website. But once we finalize and sign that, all of the information you input into our website does get automatically populated into the government form, and that form is what the participant takes to the embassy. So when they have their visa interview, the embassy officials are also reviewing this training plan. So it is really important to understand what the training plan is, and that as you're writing it, you're keeping all that in mind, that this is a government document that the participant is using to get their visa. So the training plan is essentially a syllabus of the participant's internship. So it's going to outline exactly what the participant is learning and doing in the US with your organization. So you will want to think out, exactly what your participant wants to learn, what you're able to teach them, how it aligns with their degree program or their past work experience, and kind of what their goals are, and what your goals are as well. So generally, if your participant's coming for a longer program, there will be a required number of phases. So sometimes, if someone's coming for a 6-month program, you'll need to have at least 2 phases of this training plan, and that indicates, this is what they're going to be learning for the first 3 months, and then this is what they're going to be learning for the next 3 months. And kind of the phases do need to build upon each other, and kind of show that the participant is progressing in their skills and continuing to learn new things throughout the program. It does need to show that there's a balance between the interns' learning opportunities and their contributions to your organization. So it really does need to show that there's a plan in place for training the participant, and that the main purpose of the participant being here is to learn from you and to experience US culture. The training plan needs to show that it's a minimum of 32 hours per week. So that is a State Department requirement. Interns do need to train at least 32 hours per week. And it does need to show that you will have a plan for exposing the participant to US culture, both in and out of the workplace. We do have a training plan guide on our website, so I think that's linked here in the presentation. And it does go through each of the questions that are in the training plan. Again, those questions are set by the State Department, but we do kind of help you break down what each question is asking and the best way to answer those as you go through and write a training plan for your participant. I will say the first time you host, the training plan is a bit, it feels like a lot, and then sometimes it is kind of hard to write that first training plan, but it really does help your participant have a better program. So if you put enough thought into it, it really helps you throughout the actual program, make sure the participants' goals are being met and that you're continuing to train them. And then after that participant has finished their program, if you want to host again and you have a participant coming for a very similar program, we do save those training plans in our website, and you're able to copy that training plan from a past participant to any new participants going forward. So the training plan process does get a lot easier if you're a repeat host employer. So we do recommend keeping that in mind as you're writing the first training plan, that it does get easier if you're going to be hosting participants again in the future, and you use InterExchange as a sponsor. And then we are almost finished, so I think there's only a couple more slides. If you do have questions, please type them into the chat box, because we will be answering some of those at the end. Before we get to that, I know hosts often have a question about if there's a cost for them to be host employers. For hosts, generally there really is no fee. Obviously, if you're going to be paying the participant, that's part of the internship program. But in terms of the visa application, there is generally not a fee for hosts. The interns and trainees are the ones, are generally the ones responsible for paying the program fees. So there are inter-exchange program fees that participants pay to us for their sponsorship application, but that is generally paid by the participants and not by the host. You are welcome to cover that sponsorship fee for your participants if you'd like to, and we have information about the cost and how to submit that on our website, but you don't have to. Often it is the participants who are paying that. The only fee that you may be required to pay is a one-time site visit fee of $250. And this is only if your organization is required to have a site visit. And the majority of hosts do not require a site visit. Site visits are only required if you're a smaller company who has less than 25 employees and also a smaller revenue as well. So Inter-Exchange will determine kind of by your company profile that you upload if we need to do a site visit of your organization, and then we'll let you know about that $250 one-time fee if that is required. And again, that's just one time overall, not per application. So if you host again in the future, we don't have to do another site visit and charge another fee. Great, that was the last slide. So here's our team. If you have any questions now, please type them into the chat and we will answer those now. Otherwise, if you think of them in the future, you can always email us and we're happy to help you as well. Great.
Thank you, Alex.
So let's see. Yeah, hello, Megan, welcome back. Let me see if we have any questions coming in.
Great.
So it looks like we did have one question come in. So someone has asked if they have 4 employees at their company, can they host an intern?
That's a great question. So generally the requirement from Inter-Exchange on the ratio is that for every J1 intern or trainee, there need to be at least 5 full-time regular employees. And we do have, we are a little more lenient on that in New York City. So if you are located in New York City, it can be a 3-to-1 J1 to full-time staff ratio. But generally the ratio is 5-to-1 if you're outside the 5 boroughs.
We did have another question come in. What happens when you add additional phases to the training plan?
So I do want to clarify if that's before, so within the internship, sometimes business needs change. Oh, I see. So if there's a change to the training plan, you can adding additional phases or changing the training plan during the program. That does come up from time to time. Perhaps you know, the supervisor that was going to train the participant leaves, and then somebody else is serving as a supervisor that has a little bit of different expertise, for example. That is something that does happen. If it does, it is something that you do need to report to Inter-Exchange if a change needs to happen, so that we can update their training plan and also ensure that the training that is being offered is appropriate for that participant's background and that it doesn't include any prohibited activities. So it is possible to make a change during the program, but we do need to be notified before that change occurs. We always are updating the training plans if there are any changes like that.
Thanks, Megan. Looks like one other question came in. What if I want to hire the participant to stay at my company full time?
Thank you for asking that. That does come up also because a lot of times it's a really great experience and host companies want more time with that participant. The J1 program does require that participants return home at the end of their program. So after they finish the J1 internship or training program, they do need to depart the US and return home. If you want to stay in touch with that applicant or that participant in the future and discuss other options, that is fine, but they won't be able to stay, they won't be able to transfer from their current program onto another visa. So you shouldn't be offering them a full-time role right after their internship. That makes sense.
And do you help with writing the training plan, or do we help with writing the training plan?
Also a good question. Yes, as Abigail mentioned, the training plan is probably the biggest hurdle for new host companies because they do have to write a detailed training plan, keeping in mind the needs of the participant. The host companies are required to write their own training plans. We do have a training plan guide that they can use. And once you submit the first go at your training plan, we will also review it and let you know if it's fine the way it is or if there's any additional information that needs to be added. So we will work with you to make sure that the training plan is appropriate and let you know if there's any section that needs additional details, but we won't be able to write it for you, but we can help you with it.
Great. And then in terms of changes for training plan during the program, how does that work? Like, who are the contacts for that?
That's a great question. So any participant that's coming to the US, that participant and the host will have a main contact at InterExchange, one of these friendly faces that you see here. And that person will be in contact with you throughout the program to check in with you if there's any issues. And that is the person, once you're approved for the program, we'll send you a message that says you're approved. And this is your contact person. So you'll be able to reach out to that contact person directly and let them know if there are any changes.
And then someone wants to know if they can have today's PowerPoint.
Absolutely, yes. So we've recorded the session and we will send it to all of you so that you'll be able to access it and along with some additional resources.
Looks like that's all of the questions that we have at the moment.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining today. I really appreciate having an audience of some hosts that have already worked with us previously and some new hosts as well. So we look forward to working with all of you in the future. Take care.
Thank you.